BBC Radio 5 Live.
And the headlines at 8 o'clock. Serena Williams has waved an emotional goodbye after being knocked out of the US Open in New York. She was beaten by Australia's Ajla Tomljanovic in what's expected to be her last ever competitive match. The former British number one Laura Robson was watching.
For Serena, it was the most fitting end in a way, because right up until that last ball, she gave everything. She had nothing left in the tank and just committed to playing free, fun tennis. It looked like she was having the best time. It was an emotional interview at the end, but I really feel like she's happy with the way that finished.
And we'll have more on that story in the sport with James.
There are renewed fears about energy supplies to Europe this winter because the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline is being closed indefinitely. Gazprom, the Russian company which runs it, has blamed an oil leak. Our economics editor, Faisal Islam, has the details.
G7 finance ministers, including Nadhim Zahawi, the UK Chancellor, agreed to cap the price the world will pay for Russian oil. And then this comes. It seems to have an element for tit for tat. Very serious, because even during the height of the Cold War, those gas supplies from Russia into Europe continued.
Millions of people will be invited for their autumn COVID booster jabs. Sorry, my computer is really giving me a runaround this morning. Their autumn COVID booster jabs in England and Scotland next week. Care home residents will receive the jabs first. Infections are falling, but health bosses are predicting a resurgence of COVID and flu this autumn and winter.
Vladimir Putin isn't going to Mikhail Gorbachev's funeral, which takes place in Moscow later. The Kremlin says the Russian president is too busy. Mr. Gorbachev died earlier this week, aged 91. His policies helped to cause the breakup of the Soviet Union.
NASA is hoping for better weather ahead of another attempt to launch its Artemis rocket. Monday's plans had to be postponed because of rain and technical problems. The rocket is part of a project to send people to the moon again by 2025. Bill Nelson is from NASA.
They have checked it, as we say in the south of the United States, from izzard to gizzard. They're very confident, and therefore I am very confident.
The managing director of Avanti West Coast Rail Company is stepping down following a backlash about timetable cuts. The organisation has blamed staffing issues for reducing services between London and Manchester by 2/3.
Bus fares across England are going to be capped at £2. The move will cost the government £60 million and could save passengers an average of around 30%. So James Gregg has got the sport this morning. We'll talk about the cricket as well. Interesting to hear from Claire Connor just now, saying she's not going to go for the full-time chief executive role at the ECB. But Serena Williams, what a legend of the game. And have we seen the last of her on a tennis court?
She didn't seem too sure, did she? We played a clip in the last hour, actually, just saying, well, she was like, well, we'll have to see. Really? Okay. Everybody thinks it is. I think I'm unsure. I'm unsure personally, but what I am enjoying about Serena is the fact that we are just calling her Serena. She's in that sort of pantheon of greats, isn't she? Where you only need one name to talk about her. You think Tiger, Ayrton, Cristiano, Seve, LeBron. 23 Grand Slam titles. I think that Serena is definitely amongst it, as is her sister as well, Venus. Dan Evans and Cam Norrie, two of the last Brits in the singles at the US Open, by the way, both in action in the last 32. Today in New York, we'll have commentary of both matches online later on. Murray and Draper both out yesterday. Andy Murray lost his match. Jack Draper had to retire, unfortunately, with a pulled hamstring when his match was at 1 set apiece at Flushing Meadows. Merseyside Derby Day, Old Firm Derby Day as well. We've got details on those games. We have commentary of the Old Firm Derby from 12:30. That is one of 3 commentary matches today here on 5 Live. There were big wins for Wigan and Huddersfield in Super League last night, booking their playoff spots on a high. And like Ellie says, as the 100 reaches its climax today with both the men's and women's finals taking place at Lords, and we did just hear from interim CEO, didn't we, Claire Connor, telling Ellie just a few moments ago that she won't be going for that job permanently. For those who are interested in all those changes that are happening at the ECB. More sport throughout the programme in more depth as ever here on Saturday Breakfast.
BBC Radio 5 Live.
The voice of the UK.
Saturday Breakfast. Listen live, pause, rewind and discover with the BBC Sounds app.
Yes, it's a Saturday morning. If you're just waking up, thank you for joining us. Greg McKenzie.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, here today and tomorrow.
We've had a busy couple of hours and all fine
indeed.
so far. You're in one piece.
I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it.
Good. Excellent stuff. Look, we're going to start with the story of a legend this morning. As James says, you know, if you know somebody by their first name alone, they are a bona fide, absolute cast iron legend. And Serena Williams is that. After a 27-year professional career, 23 major singles titles, Serena has made an emotional farewell at the US Open. It's expected to be her last ever competitive match as she, in her own words, evolves away from the sport. If it is her final match, it was a typically thrilling and dramatic way to go out. She was beaten in 3 sets by Australia's Ajla Tomljanovic.
She serves. Forehand from Williams. Backhand from Tomljanovic. Williams with the forehand. Forehand from Tomljanovic. Williams hits the forehand into the net. Serena Williams' career is over. The greatest of all time has finally run out of time. Here in the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York,
And Serena gave a heartfelt post-match interview thanking everyone who had ever rooted for her.
These are happy tears, I guess. I don't know. And I wouldn't be Serena if it wasn't Venus. So thank you, Venus.
Well, let's speak now to sports journalist Natasha Henry, who I know has written about Serena and is maybe a bit of a Serena fan. Would that be right, Natasha?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good morning, guys. I would definitely say I am a Serena fan. Proud of being a Serena fan.
It's hard. I mean, it is hard not to be when you think about what she has done for the sport and for women's sport, women's tennis in particular.
Yeah, I mean, even if you prefer other players to her, I don't think you can minimise her talents, her achievements in the game, and her legacy in the game.
So, how would you describe that legacy?
Well, I've seen so many tweets this morning, and one of the ones I saw was a woman now, and there's a picture of Serena Williams as a young girl and another young girl. And the girl says, my coach says, keep this picture because this girl will win tons of Grand Slams. And I think that is a great example of Serena's legacy, how she's affected so many people's lives from the time she started playing tennis before she was professional to people like myself and yourself who now talk about her and watch her every year, or we used to.
Mm. And the way that she used to take to the court, she had that extraordinary ability to just dominate, you know, that she was a presence on court, and it was almost like she had won a game before she even hit a ball sometimes.
I think definitely in individual sports, you need that self-confidence. It's not like a team sport where you have someone next to you that can kind of G you up if you're not feeling great about yourself. And I think that you're right, that was one of her strengths. She always walked onto the court believing she could win. And I think whatever you're competing in, whatever you're trying to do in your life, that's a really good message to send people. Believe in yourself, be yourself, and do your best.
She's been so true to herself as well, hasn't she? And sometimes, as we said, that has upset people.
I mean, it apparently has upset them. I don't understand why someone being confident, being body positive, encouraging others to be confident and do their best upsets someone, but apparently it does. But
I think maybe did so even more when she started out, actually. I think maybe more so than now. But certainly kind of 10, 15 years ago, she was challenging.
She was challenging because she was challenging what people decided was the norm. Tennis, like a lot of sports, was a very closed shop with a certain demographic. And Serena and Venus came along and they blew that out of the water. They broke that glass ceiling for so many people. But isn't it more beautiful that we now have a tennis world where we have diversity, we have a mix of races and nationalities, and more people playing the sport than ever before?
And when you look at somebody like Coco Gauff, who's talked about the impact that the Williams sisters have had on her career, I read out a tweet earlier on from Simone Biles, the gymnast, talking about the impact that Serena had on her and the things that she's done for women of colour, but for women in sport generally. I mean, that's, you know, it transcends sport, it transcends tennis, it transcends all sport.
Yeah, I think even if we take away the sport factor of it, her as a person, like I say, her confidence, her belief, the way she tries to, what I call, pay it forward, which is help those who are less fortunate than her, the way she's keen to educate the future and invest in companies and in organizations that promote equality, that is what we will remember of Serena. When we're talking about her in 30, 40 years, we will still talk about the tennis, but we will also talk about Serena, the philanthropist and the person.
A number of people, including Billie Jean King, have said, I'm excited to see what comes next for Serena. What do you think will come next for her?
I think we'll see her more involved with Angel City, where she's obviously one of the major shareholders.
Which is that? So tell us more about that for people who don't know.
So that's a club in the NWSL in America. Sorry, not the NWSL, the Men's Super League in America. And Serena, Eva Longoria, and several other very famous females are the shareholders. And it's a very progressive, forward-thinking football team.
And beyond that, her philanthropies you've mentioned as well. But, you know, she's a style icon, isn't she?
Yeah, she has a lot of strings to her bow. I would love to see her give some of her tennis education back to those coming through. I would love to see her coaching or maybe advising the tennis authorities on some of the things that she struggled with. I think that would be beautiful for her to help them push forward and make it a more inclusive tennis world than it is at times.
Look, Natasha, it's great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. It feels like the end of an era, but maybe the start of a new era.
It does very much.
Yeah. Natasha Henry, sports journalist, talking about Serena Williams, who we think has finished.
Oh, there's plenty more. And she's going to train others, and there'll be the new generation of kind of Serena Williams followers and all those in the industry that kind of inspired by her. So I don't think this is the end. I think we're going to see much more of her now, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not on a tennis court, actually physically hitting a ball, but lots more to come from Serena, undoubtedly. It's 11 minutes past 8 now.
It is indeed. So NASA is once again preparing its new giant moon rocket for takeoff after being forced to abandon the first attempt earlier this week. Artemis 1 is part of a long-term plan to eventually take humans back to the moon after more than half a century. It'll send an unmanned capsule round it during its maiden flight. Monday's launch had to be scrapped after an engine overheated, but everything is back on track now with a new age of space exploration about to begin. Well, Mark McCaughrean joins us now. He's a senior advisor with the European Space Agency. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
A big day for NASA and all the scientists.
Yeah, and I think important to say right from the outset, big day for the European Space Agency as well, because unlike Apollo, we actually have a big critical piece of hardware on board the top of this rocket. So this is, as you said, it's uncrewed at the moment. No astronauts on board. The next flight will have astronauts, and at the top there's a capsule which they will sit in. And that capsule needs life support. It needs oxygen and propulsion and electricity and so on. And that whole part is actually provided by the European Space Agency, so including the UK. So there's lots riding on this, not only for NASA but for Europe and for Canada and Japan. They're on board as well.
And how long has it taken to develop that bit you talk about from the European Space Agency?
Was actually extension, in a sense, a redevelopment of a thing that we built to go to the International Space Station, I think called the Automated Transfer Vehicle, which resupplied crew with food and equipment and so on 5 times. So that's been in development in some sense for several decades, but for the Orion crew vehicle, as it's called at the top there, about 10 years.
And Mark, how disappointing was it on Monday when it had to be called off?
Not really. This is a brand new vehicle. I mean, some of the bits of it come from the space shuttle, the actual engines. Those 4 engines at the bottom actually have been flown in space before. They're from the space shuttle program. And the solid rocket boosters as well are a development of the space shuttle. But the whole core section, which contains the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen fuel, I mean, you said at the beginning that the engine overheated. Actually, what happened, it didn't cool enough. These engines, they are made of metal, and if you shock them with liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, that which is very cold, minus 250 degrees, if those engines aren't cold enough at that point, they'll break. So you bleed some of that liquid cryogen, that oxygen and hydrogen through first to cool it down. It didn't quite get cold enough. It was about 20 degrees too warm. So overheated, yes, but undercooled, you might be the other way. In fact, it turns out it's probably just a faulty sensor, that it probably was at the right temperature. So they think they fixed that. But this is what we're doing. We're testing this rocket. So let's hope it goes today.
And we're hoping, 7 p.m. UK time. So paint a picture for us at the European Space Agency in the final moments before launch. Is it frantic behind scenes? Where are you? Are you there? Are you kind of behind desk computers and kind of waiting for those famous countdown 10, 9, 8?
We have a lot of people, of course, over in Florida, some of our astronauts and some of the people that built the European service module, and they'll be sitting behind consoles because that's all instrumented up and that will all have to be working. Those of us back here in Europe, well, it's lovely dinner time. We'll be able to, hopefully it's still sunny. We can go out and maybe watch on our phones. So it'll be quite relaxed from that perspective. The other thing to think about today in Florida, of course, is the weather. We can't launch this rocket in rain, and we can't launch it when there are thunderstorms around. Many people don't know this, but Apollo 12, for example, was actually struck by lightning shortly after launch, and there was, it could have failed at that point. So, and Florida, a bit like any of these places in the near tropics where many of our launch sites are, can be quite rainy. So there's a 60% chance of it launching today. But if the weather cuts it out, then the next opportunity will be Monday. We'll get there. So I think, we'll be watching on, but nobody will be. Well, we'll be nervous, but you know what I mean. We're professionals,
and I guess it's grabbing attention around the world. I mean, this is a big deal. This is the first rocket up to the moon. Since the 60s? It's the modern day version of man on the moon in 69, 72.
Well, I think a critical thing about that also is we hope to put the first woman on the moon and the first European on the moon. This, again, it's an international program, so somewhat different. And it's not just going back to put boots on the surface and flags and so on. We are also working with NASA on what's called the Gateway, which is a smaller version of the International Space Station, but will be in the orbit of the moon. And from there, we're also trying to learn lessons about how ultimately we can take humans to Mars. So this is, I think, everybody knows the history in the Cold War of the Apollo program, and of course there was a sense that politics is always involved. Hopefully we'll do more this time and not just go back and do the same thing, but that's certainly the aim.
Well, thank you, Mark. Mark McCaughrean there, Senior Advisor with the European Space Agency. And, of course, that launch is meant to be going at 7 p.m. UK time this evening. Well, the time now is 17 minutes past 8.
Essential football listening.
Oh, what a fine goal! That was exquisite!
More live Premier League football than anyone else. 1-1-1-1.
Later today, Chelsea host West Ham. 3 p.m. kickoff. Then it's Aston Villa against Manchester City from 5:30. And on Sunday from 2, Brighton take on Leicester. Followed by Manchester United against Arsenal. Essential football listening is right here, including more live Premier League football than anyone else.
This is 5 Live.
Well, let's talk about the Premier League then. And one place to start this weekend. It's the lunchtime kickoff. It's the Merseyside derby. It's also the Old Firm derby at lunchtime as well. So it's a big derby day today. Neither Everton nor Liverpool has made a particularly convincing start to the season. Here's the Toffees boss, Frank Lampard.
I can't wait. I'm really excited. I enjoyed the experience at Anfield last year. The overall atmosphere, the game obviously didn't go our way, but we were very competitive, and I understood and felt straight away the feeling between the fans in a good way. I love those atmospheres. And now we've got the window shut. It's nice that we can go, okay, well, I hope that the fans see we've worked hard in this window to try and take the club forward, improve the team. So it almost feels like, not that it starts here, but, it really hopefully is a moment where we can all get together and have a positive season.
Well, Liverpool go into the match after a late win, slightly controversial late win over Newcastle in midweek. Here's Jurgen Klopp.
I really think the Newcastle game was a perfect preparation because the game was super intense and showed us what we will have to expect. Even if somebody might not know it yet, then he knows it after Wednesday.
Well, let's speak to the former Liverpool and Newcastle defender, Jose Enrique. Good morning.
Good morning.
It feels like a really important derby, this one, for both teams. I mean, they're always important, but possibly more than ever.
Yes, like you say, they are always important, but it's true that at the moment, I believe, even if Liverpool has won 2 games in a row, they still, in my opinion, didn't find them form yet. So obviously, and Everton didn't start very well either. So like you say, probably one of the most important for both of them, to keep the season on.
It felt as at times watching certainly the end of the Liverpool-Newcastle game the other day, that there's a real pressure. There's a real kind of, I don't know, it feels like Jurgen Klopp losing his cool a little bit, which is not the most usual thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's that. I think obviously the transfer window didn't help, in my opinion. Mane leaving, Origi, Minamino, and then at the end you sign Nunez. That obviously is still a lot to prove, and so probably obviously it's a change on the team with younger players, with Carvalho as well. That's a little bit what's happening. But I think, like you say, with Newcastle, in my opinion, actually was there. I'm still watching the game, and Newcastle for most of the game until Firmino scored the goal. Really, they were the better side as well. So it's a bit worrying that in 5 games they still not find their form yet. So let's see what happens. But it's a strange season for Liverpool for now.
What was Derby Day like when you were playing in them? Can you sum up what it was like to play in a Merseyside derby?
The only word I can tell you is the best. I think playing these kind of games as a footballer, obviously the derbies against Everton and United, playing for Liverpool is the best. Obviously, I'd rather to play this game at Anfield, with your own fans. But obviously, even when Liverpool away fans, they go to Goodison Park as well. It's still amazing. The feeling is different. The players, you feel different. You always give even that extra bit. It's obviously controversial. Obviously, like it happened with Pickford in the last game as well. And Alisson then repeated the same thing with the ball. So it's always a special game, 100%.
Liverpool, they've got not a great record away from home at the moment. They've only got 1 point so far in an away game. So what do they need to do today, do you think, at Goodison?
I think they need to come back to the way they used to play. I think in these 5 games, they don't have to. When they play the way they should, they've been playing under Klopp for that long. I don't think they have to worry about the team that they're playing against. The problem, the worrying thing, is like I think the team is desire and intensity sometimes is not there now, and it's 5 games already. So obviously, I believe in the team. That I believe they're gonna come back to that intensity and desire. But that's the worrying thing. I don't really worry about Everton's performance. I'm more worried about Liverpool's performance, to be honest.
Well, of course, I would expect that to hear that from you. But I mean, for Everton, what do they need? It is already looking difficult for them, isn't it? How are they going to avoid another relegation battle?
To be honest, if you look at other squads on the Premier League, they should avoid the relegation battle. It's true, the relegation. In my opinion, obviously, the problem, the striker, obviously, they're depending a lot in a 21-year-old Gordon as well. I love him, don't get me wrong. I think it's a very, very good player that can become something else in the future. Still too soon to talk about that. But then, obviously, they should have signed probably someone world class in there, because at the end, they depend a lot in Calvert-Lewin as well. That I really like him as well, but it's more or less all the time injury. Obviously nothing to do with him. He's just unlucky with that. So obviously you can see that. And I just check actually, and the most assists is Pickford at the moment after 5 games. So your goalkeeper is the one with most assists on the team. So obviously that's a little bit worrying. So what they need to do is just obviously with the team they have, try to obviously do their best, and they have enough good team, in my opinion, to avoid relegation, but can be another season fighting to don't relegate. Yes, yeah. I believe so.
On 5 Live later on this evening at 5:30, we've got Aston Villa against Manchester City, and it feels like somebody else who is an absolute legend at Anfield in Steven Gerrard is coming under so much pressure already as Aston Villa manager this season. How do you sum up the task that he faces?
Well, it's going to be very difficult for him. Obviously, at the end, he didn't start very well. I know, obviously, because I've been a player myself, when you don't start that well, the confidence of the players, the expectation of the team. I actually was with him not long ago as well, and I believe he will turn it around, don't get me wrong, but it's always difficult. But if it happens, the most important is if in these difficult moments, the club is going to back him, or they will sack him, like happens in Bournemouth with Scott Parker, So that's the most important thing, because difficult moments is going to be there. But if they back him up and wait and have patience, I really believe he's going to be a good manager for Aston Villa.
Well, I'm sure that's a good endorsement for him that I'm sure he'll appreciate. Thank you so much, Jose, talking to us about the Merseyside derby at 12:30 today. Jose Enrique, but 5 Live, the best Premier League coverage across the weekend. So 4 commentaries this weekend, including the Old Firm derby this lunchtime. Also, Chelsea West Ham at 3, followed by Aston Villa against Manchester City at 5:30. And then tomorrow, Brighton against Leicester at 2 o'clock, followed by Manchester United against the leaders, 100% record this season already, Arsenal, at 4:30. So that's one I'm sure we'll be speaking about on the breakfast programme tomorrow morning.
I'm sure we will, as a Chelsea fan myself. Right, the time is 8:25. Now, you may remember in March, the sad news broke that the Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins had died in his hotel room in Bogota. No cause of his death has been officially given, but Colombian investigators found that he had opioids and other drugs in his system when he died. Tonight, a special tribute concert will take place at Wembley Stadium with a long list of famous faces from the music world performing, including... So that was Queens of the Stone Age, The Darkness, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, and of course the Foo Fighters. Well, Ali Shuttler is a music journalist and will be covering the concert for NME tonight, and he joins us now. So Ali, in terms of other big names, who else can we expect tonight?
Well, Liam Gallagher's opening the show before jetting off to do like his own headline show in Spain. Obviously, there's members of kind of Metallica, like you said, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, Kesha, Chrissy Hynde, Mark Ronson, Nile Rodgers. There's rumours Paul McCartney might show up. I think he was kind of heard sound checking yesterday at the stadium. But yeah, there's basically like over 30 names from kind of across generations and across genres.
And it's a bumper lineup. I mean, it's kind of the who's of the music industry, isn't it, with this event tonight? So he was a much loved individual as well as an artist.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, he was playing live, you know, he started touring with Alanis Morissette in the 90s before joining Foo Fighters. You know, he had solo projects, you know, Coattail Riders. There was NHC, which was kind of a supergroup that he formed with members of Jane's Addiction early this year. You know, he's appeared on records with Miley Cyrus, Ozzy Osbourne, Elton John. You know, I think generally he was well regarded as one of the best drummers going. And, you know, I think from what I understand, you know, speaking to some of the bands that are playing and stuff, it kind of feels like he was just a really good dude to have around, like super encouraging, always super friendly. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense that kind of everyone's turned up to kind of pay their respects.
And it'll be one of the hottest tickets in town. You'll be going, albeit in a journalist capacity. What do you reckon the mood's going to be at the concert tonight?
I think it's going to be one of celebration. Like, obviously, the loss of Taylor's, you know, is heartbreaking for fans of Foo Fighters, for his friends, his family, and just kind of music in general. But I think, you know, he was someone that loved music so much that I think everyone kind of performing is kind of, you know, knows that and wants to kind of put on the best show possible kind of in his memory. So, yeah, I think it's going to be, you know, I think there's going to be moments that are going to be absolutely heartbreaking, but I think for the most part, it's going to be kind of a celebration of kind of music and that communal power that has to heal people. Because I think, you know, it's one of those weird things where, you know, a lot of these people have never met Taylor. They kind of just know him as the drummer in the Foo Fighters, but obviously, you know, super devastated by his loss. So I think for fans, it will give them a chance to kind of be surrounded by like-minded people who have kind of gone through something similar, you know, and just kind of celebrate, you know, who he was as a person, as a musician, and kind of what he brought to the world.
And Ali, in terms of in terms of tickets, people that haven't got tickets, can you watch this online? Is it being streamed or is it just a closed door?
Yeah, well, there are still a few kind of tickets on Twickets, which is like a fan-to-fan resale site. So obviously, fans bought tickets, can't go anymore. So they're being sold for face value if anyone's in the area and wants to come down. But yeah, the whole thing's being, I think, live streamed on YouTube. I think it's MTV's thingy. And then I think there's plans for kind of on-demand things and like highlight concerts kind of throughout the week.
Fantastic. All right, Ali. Thank you. That's Ali Shuttler there, a music journalist from NME who will be attending that memorial concert tonight for the Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins, who died in his hotel room back in March.
It is, what have we got coming up between now and 9 o'clock? Well, we're going to be talking to Patrick Healty in a few minutes' time because he has got a brand new show on 5 Live. So we're going to be hearing about what will be part of that. We'll talk about The Masked Dancer as well, and just a kind of that warm feeling that you get when you're looking forward to the autumn TV schedule. So
absolutely,
trailers for Bake Off, which have come out, little Strictly hints as well. And we know what's in the Strictly lineup. So
lots
we'll
of telly
hear about that. Lots of good telly to look forward to, and also the finals of the 100, because the cricket season is not over yet. I'm refusing to give up on the summer. We are not there.
We're not over yet.
No. But let's get the news, shall we? It's 8:30.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And the headlines: Serena Williams has paid an emotional tribute to her parents as she bowed out of the US Open. Her loss to Ayla Tomljanovic at Flushing Meadow is likely to be her last ever competitive match. We'll have more in the sport in a moment.
Russia's main gas pipeline to Europe is to stay closed indefinitely. Gazprom says it's found an oil leak in a turbine on the Nord Stream 1. The company which made the turbine says it isn't a reason to stop pumping gas.
The managing director of the Avanti West Coast Rail Company is stepping down following a backlash about timetable cuts. The company has blamed staffing issues for reducing services between London and Manchester by 2/3.
And there will be another attempt to launch NASA's biggest ever rocket later. It's part of the Artemis program, which aims to put people on the moon again by 2025.
So with our sport this morning, and it's been a busy morning already, here's James Gregg.
It has indeed. You will have likely heard by now, if you've been listening to the programme, that it is probably almost certainly the last time that we'll see Serena play tournament tennis after she was knocked out of the US Open last night. 23 Grand Slam titles, 319 weeks in total as world number one, and all the immeasurables as well that transcend tennis that go hand in hand with what has been an amazing career. Michelle Obama, Tiger Woods, many stars from the sporting world and beyond tweeting their congratulations. It was an emotional goodbye at Flushing Meadows.
It takes a lot of work to get here. Clearly I'm still capable, but it takes a lot more than that. I'm ready to be a mom and explore a different version of Serena. And technically in the world I'm still super young, so I want to have a little bit of a life while I'm still walking.
Ayla Tomljanovic, the Aussie, who beat her, by the way, who gave actually a very amusing yet indeed unbroadcastable answer when she was asked about becoming a trivia question in answer in years to come. Search it. It is well worth it. Two Brits standing, by the way, in the last 32 of the US Open, Dan Evans and Cam Norrie. We've got online commentary of both those matches this afternoon and evening. We've also got commentary from 12:30 today of the Old Firm derby, Celtic and Rangers, with big European nights ahead on Tuesday. But let's be honest, a huge onus as ever on today's clash. So many different talking points around that one. Also at 12:30, the Merseyside derby. Everton playing Liverpool at Goodison Park, and Everton's new forward Neil Maupay could make his debut as he was ineligible for that draw at Leeds United in midweek. Newcastle welcome back Darwin Núñez following suspension for a headbutt against Crystal Palace. Now, our commentary game and round the grounds base from 3 o'clock is Stamford Bridge. Could see some new faces in the Chelsea squad taking on West Ham today. A bit of a ropey start for Thomas Tuchel's side, but Tuchel himself says they've done excellent transfer business, but he doesn't want to talk about the title race.
Well, before we talk about challenging for the title, we should be ready to challenge with West Ham for a win, and then we go on. It's too many losses already, too many points dropped already to talk about big things.
Meanwhile, our third commentary game of the day is at Villa Park. Second from bottom take on second top. Aston Villa will be hard-pressed to deal with Manchester City and obviously Erling Haaland as well. He scored 2 hat-tricks in a week, 9 goals in the Premier League so far in 5 matches played. His manager Pep Guardiola says he's not going to predict how far the Norwegian can go this season.
I'm admire all the people who can anticipate what is going to happen in the future, in the next 10 months, 12 months. I'm not able to do it. So. 1 month ago was a disaster because the Community Shield, and now is going to break absolutely everything. So I'm not able to anticipate what is going to happen. That's why I'm not a guy who works in this business.
Looking forward to that one at 5:30. Meanwhile, at 4:30, England need 1 point in Austria tonight to qualify for the Women's World Cup. It is the Lionesses' first match since their Euros heroics. Will it be a different side? Well, it's looking likely to be so, because following record goal scorer Ellen White's retirement, England need a new number 9. So has Serena Wiegmann made up her mind on who replaces her?
Of course, the position of number 9 is very competitive. As actually all the positions in the team are very competitive. I did make up my mind. Basically, I'm not going to share that yet because we still have 1 training session. But I'm happy with the way we run the pitch.
We'll keep you across that one. And in cricket, it is finals day of the 100. Like Ellie says, I know you're excited for this one, Ellie. The Southern Brave women playing the Oval Invincibles at Lords. And a back-to-back as well, isn't it? Because the men's final comes straight after at Lords, the home of cricket. The Trent Rockets playing the Manchester Originals. You can hear both those games on 5 Sports Extra.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Listen live on digital, online, smart speaker, or the BBC Sounds app.
Now, time is 8:35, so now to check in with Stav Daneos on the weather. How's it looking, Stav?
Thank you very much, Greg and Eddie. Good morning to you. We've got low pressure hanging around this weekend, so a lot more unsettled than what we've been used to. But the low will be sitting to the west of the UK, so it's western areas which will see the strongest of the winds, the most cloud and outbreaks of rain. Further east, it should tend to be drier with some spells of sunshine. And we're also drawing up some warm air from the south, so it's going to be quite warm both today and tomorrow with warm and muggy nights. So through this afternoon, it looks like heavy rain will continue to affect parts of Northern Ireland, western, in particular southwest Scotland and western Wales, southwest England too. The rest of the country will see some dry weather with some sunshine around, but scattered showers will develop. These could be heavy with a risk of thunder, particularly across Scotland into northern and eastern England. Breezy day across western areas, but warm for all across the UK. 18 to 22 degrees, up to 25, maybe 26 degrees in eastern England. Tonight it'll stay wet across northern and western areas. A few showers elsewhere. It's going to be windy in the north and the southwest. A warmer night to come than last night, 12 to 16 degrees. Tomorrow then, part 2 of the weekend, it'll be wet, windy across the southwest corner of the UK. That wet, windy weather spreading northwards across the Irish Sea, affecting western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, it's a mixture of sunny spells and a few showers. Again, warm temperatures, 23 to 26 degrees. That's your latest weather.
The voice of the UK. This is 5 Live. Saturday breakfast.
Listen live on digital, online, smart speaker, or the BBC Sounds app.
Well, the time is 8:37 and we'll be with you here until 9. Then it's a warm welcome to Patrick Kilty for his new show here on 5 Live. So, Patrick, what's coming up this morning?
What would you actually say, Greg, if I said I didn't know? How unprepared would that actually be with the intro that you've just given me?
I think that would be up to standard for your predecessors on the show, Patrick, to be honest.
You know that the way that the Man United bench kind of looks at Ronaldo whenever he says he wants to start, and they look at him thinking there's maybe 10 minutes in you at the end. That's kind of the vibe. With the production team kind of looking at me, they're sort of going, maybe we should throw him on at 11:15, but I wouldn't start him at 9:00.
I was going to say, do you want Colin Murray to be on standby to start fighting talk early, alternatively?
There is going to be, I would say, a very tricky moment for most of the listeners in the UK when Colin Murray comes into the studio to tell us what happens on Fight and Talk at around 10:30, and that's when Colin and I will begin to start speaking through our nose like two people from Northern Ireland. And you can stitch people's mouths up from Northern Ireland, you see, and they can still talk. You'll actually see the two accents that we really have, rather than the BBC accents we pretend to have. That's what will be happening.
Sorry, Colin's got a BBC accent. I've never noticed that.
Colin. Do you know Colin's very much? Do you not think Colin's kind of swallowed Gloria Honeyford?
Do you think he has? Oh, God,
Oh,
that's
you know,
an
in
image,
that kind of in that ing way.
Okay.
He's definitely finishing his ings.
Okay. Oh, that's the giveaway. Is it?
That's what the giveaway is. We have coming up in the show. We have Marisha Wallace. Marisha Wallace, star of Stage, West End. An amazing story. She came over from America for 3 weeks. She is still here after 5 years. She's knocking it out of the park. She's going to be telling us all about that, all about being a Yank in the UK. We've got Cara Toynton, formerly of EastEnders, former Strictly winner. She's going to be coming on to talk about a new app about bringing families together and reading and kids. We have the Amazons, rock band, Rock Gods. They're going to be on because it's a new season and we're going to be talking football chants. Because we have two great voices in the studio, we were kind of wondering, does a football chant sound better with sort of 6,000 out-of-tune people behind a goal? Or could that maybe sound quite nice if it was put into the hands of a proper musician? So if you're getting ready to go to a football game, if you're maybe on the way to a game, if you want to maybe send us some of the chants that possibly this could go terribly wrong. I mean, can any of these chants possibly be sung on the wireless before the watershed? We're going to try to do that.
Have you been selective about which ones you're going for?
Exactly. Yeah. And we also want to know, Saturday mornings are that thing where people pretend to be relentlessly positive. It's that thing of, we're doing this, we're doing that, but we all know the weekend is also that time where something kind of stares us down the barrel. And it's that thing where you've agreed to do something, you've agreed to do somebody a favour, you've agreed to take somebody to a birthday party, you've agreed to go to a birthday party, and you might want out of it. And this is your last chance. If you contact the show, we might be able to come up with an excuse if there's something else that you want to do.
I love that.
Yeah. Saturday morning dread. We all know it.
The Saturday morning dread. So our first caller for that item is a guy called Patrick from Dundrum, County Down, who is wondering how he can get out of presenting the show.
It's too late.
In about 20 minutes' time. We're also looking for our very first guest. So we have we've got three amazing guests. Right at the top of the hour, we're going to be asking for a Five Live listener if they would like to come on, be our first guest. We will treat you exactly the same as we treat all our other guests. You can pretend that you want to be here and you can actually tell us what you'd like to plug and we'll have a little chat. So if anybody wants to contact the show between now and 9 o'clock, we'll have you on and you could be our first guest.
Excellent. Can they get in touch with you now? Can they put in a bid to become that first guest?
They can put in a bid. They can give us a text on 85058. That is how you contact us, or patrick@bbc.co.uk.
Lovely stuff, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good luck.
Yeah, good luck is the least of it. Yeah, car crash radio coming up in about 20 minutes' time. No, Patrick Keelty's going to be absolutely brilliant. And then, of course, at 11 o'clock it will be Colin Murray, as we said, with Fighting Talk. And I've got a sheet of paper here talking about being underprepared, which has got my answers for Fighting Talk on it, and it's kind of scribbles at the moment. So once we come off air at 9 o'clock, I'm going to go away and try and make that make sense.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will, Ellie.
The 4:45 alarm this morning. 8:42, the pipeline that brings Russian gas to Central Europe, Nord Stream 1, has been closed for a few days for maintenance and was supposed to reopen today, but it hasn't happened. The state energy firm Gazprom says it's found an oil leak in a turbine on the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, meaning it will be closed indefinitely. Well, Europe is trying to wean itself off Russian energy because of the invasion of Ukraine, but the transition may not come quickly enough. Mike Fullwood is Senior Research Fellow at the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. He told us what kind of impact the switch off has in Europe.
Capacity, it provided equivalent to about 60% of Germany's demand or 15% of total EU demand. Now that's all disappeared, on top of also closing the pipeline running through Belarus and Poland. So all that gas has been lost, hence the reason the EU are looking at rationing demand and have been in preparation for winter, been trying to fill up storage, which they've done reasonably successfully. When this 3-day maintenance period is announced, gas prices shot up again by another 40 to 50%, a little bit less so in the UK, but on the continent. They did come back down again on the belief that this was temporary and it would reopen. So I'd imagine on Monday morning gas prices will go up again. And
what kind of a knock-on effect does that have for us in the UK?
I mean, it'll knock onto our prices because the UK is sort of connected to the global gas market.
Well, a bit earlier we spoke to our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, who is in Moscow this morning. It's the funeral of Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet leader, or the last Soviet leader. And he explains how the news about the Nord Stream 1 pipe is being reported over in Russia.
If you watch Russian state television, then they're saying that this is a technical fault, a technical reason, that's all. But I think it shows that the conflict between East and West, the confrontation between East and West, this isn't only happening over Ukraine, it has this energy aspect too. There is an energy war. It's been clear for some time that there is this energy war now raging between Russia and the West, and I think Vladimir Putin believes that energy is his trump card. He looks at what's happening in Europe, he looks at what's happening in Britain, he sees the cost of living crisis, he sees energy bills getting higher and higher, and he calculates that at some point over the next few months, European governments will come to him, knock on his door and say, sorry Vladimir, we were wrong, we want cheaper gas, we want to do a deal with you, we are prepared to reduce our support for Ukraine. Now, that's his calculation. Whether he's right or not, we'll have to wait and see.
And that was our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, speaking to us a little earlier on the programme.
Well, the time is now 8:45, and as we get into the autumn months and the nights start to draw in, we start asking the same question. Is there anything on telly? ITV are launching their September entertainment with the second series of The Masked Dancer, a spin-off of the popular Masked Singer show, which includes the characters Scissors, Sea Slug and Odd Socks. And
where do they come up with these? Where do they come up with these?
Do you watch
ideas?
The Masked Singer?
I've watched The Masked Singer, yes. I haven't watched The Masked Dancer.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
And sticking with celebrities dancing, we're not too far away from Strictly starting either. So to talk us through all things TV and film is film critic and TV critic Siobhan Sinnett, who joined us now. So morning, Siobhan.
Morning.
And in terms of The Masked Singer, do you want to talk us through it? Because I understand there are some changes this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you've never seen it, it's got celebrities disguised by elaborate get-ups, and you and the judges have to guess their identities from their moves, and also some very weird clues. Mo Gilligan's not going to be back on the panel. He's on tour, but happily he has been replaced by Peter Crouch, who, as we know, is a man with a few moves of his own, mostly in the robot department. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he's going to be on with Oti Mabuse, Jonathan Ross and Davina McCall, guessing the identities of a dancing pig, a shimmying sea slug, a pearly king, and also amongst the lineup there's going to be Pillar and Post, which is the first ever dancing duo. I mean, I think it's a pleasantly daft spin-off from The Masked Singer. Last season went down pretty well and had celebrities including, Eddie the Eagle as Rubber Chicken, Eagle Chicken, perhaps a bit too easy.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and Louis Smith, the gymnast, was the eventual winner as Car Wash.
Yeah, now he won Strictly back in the day, didn't he, Louis? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
He
Yes,
did. He's got some moves.
I'm trying to remember who it was with, but he's definitely a former Strictly winner.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, is that cheating? We have to ask.
Well,
do you know
I
what?
kind of think it's recycling your career, isn't it?
But I guess it'd be difficult because the costumes are going to be quite big. So, I mean, with his physique, you would know it was him in a costume if it was kind of, I guess, tight. But they'll probably make it frumpy costumes. You won't know who's in the costume. No?
I think the real challenge is for the costume department because they've got to come up with a costume that will match up to, well, Pearly King's one thing, but onomatopoeia. Yeah, that's one of the real dancers this year. Onomatopoeia, tomato sauce. I suppose that's fairly easy. But I feel really sorry for whoever's being Cactus.
Yeah, I mean, that could be quite a spiky proposition.
Yes, presumably not partnered up with anyone else. You're not going to do an Argentine tango, are you, as a cactus?
And do you know any other celebs that we know might be going in? You mentioned a few there.
Oh, they're super careful about that. There was a bit of a panic where Vernon Kay asked somebody if they, outright, if they were going to be on Masked Dancer, and they panicked. No. So no, this is super secret. But you can see how there's going to be some interesting spin-offs. We've had Masked Singer, we've had Masked Dancer. Masked Baker. That could be next.
Yeah, there could be.
Masked Radio 5 Live presenter.
I'm going to throw my name in the hat because I used to win the Metropolitan Police Discos where I grew up in southwest London many decades ago. And me and my twin we won every year. We've still got the certificates. We're talking 20 years ago. And so we still can bust a move, as they like to say. So
all sorts of interesting things about you this morning.
Yeah, I'm like, I start talking and I don't stop. It's a twin thing, I think. But do you think it will work as well as the singing version then, Siobhan?
Well, the first series, the launch series last year, did fairly well, and this is back with a new autumn slot. So obviously, ITV think that it's got moves of its own, and they've also got it leading up to The Voice UK, which is back with Anne-Marie, Ollie Murs, Tom Jones and will.i.am doing their bits on the bench. I suppose what the real thing is, this is appointment telly, and that's what a lot of linear broadcast telly is betting in the farm on. So we've got the Masked Dancer, we've got The Voice, we've got Strictly coming up on September the 17th, and of course we've got Bake Off on Tuesday the 13th, with people speculating about who's going to get a Hollywood handshake.
And there's a few series on Netflix and Amazon Prime as well. Other TV series, Lord of the Rings, I believe.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, the prequel launched yesterday at 2 a.m. I haven't found anybody who sat up at 2 a.m. to watch it, but I saw 2 hours of it in advance. It's at that stage of setting up the whole, Tolkien landscape, and it's a landscape based on just a few notes in an appendix from Lord of the Rings, the book. It looks like a lot of gong and no dinner, in that there's a lot of setting up who everybody is, what the tribal battles are, and not an awful lot of character development. And I've been told that you've got about 4 hours of this before the pistons start firing and Rings of Power makes its moves. It's got Sir Lenny Henry in it. It's got Peter Mullen, the noted Scottish character actor, in it. But apart from that, I think they're really betting that it's Tolkien himself who's going to drive fans to watching this.
And it cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, I hear, to make. So thank you so much for talking us through TV and film there. That's Sinead Sinnett, a TV and film critic. The time now is 8:52.
This is a message for parents whose child is going away to university. To prevent excessive moping, as you wistfully contemplate the pottery elephant they made in year 3 and wonder, when will I hear from them? We suggest getting them a TV licence. Then they'll be covered to watch or stream live TV on any channel or device and watch BBC iPlayer, so they can still enjoy the shows you love to watch together. And who knows, they might even send the odd message when something dramatic happens. Have something in common. Search TV Licence Uni.
Let's finish the show with cricket, because the interim boss of the ECB has told us on this programme this morning that she doesn't want the job full time. Claire Connor was on the show and she explained that she told the ECB's board of her decision this week.
I've actually decided not to apply for it on a permanent basis, Ellie. It's been an incredible honour to be doing it for these 3 months so far, and I'll obviously be as devoted as I can be in the interim role for as long as I'm needed. I actually thought, I had a strong sense that this would be my next step, my next leadership step in cricket, but the timing doesn't feel quite right for me personally or professionally. I hope that doesn't mean it's not a possibility one day. By not going for the CEO role, I think I can make a more meaningful impact in support in our drive to become the most inclusive sport, or the fully inclusive sport we need to be. And I'll remain very, very committed to that.
So was that a difficult choice for you to make? Because clearly it's an exciting job. It's one of the top jobs in the sport that you love. But the challenges are huge, aren't they? And I'm sure that a lot of people who have been following cricket this year will know that there are a lot of divisive issues
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, when I say we're at a crossroads as a sport, I mean that in many ways.
And the racism rows as well, which was
that's right.
a huge part of this.
Yes, and I've obviously been very involved in working with the ICEC, the Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket, as they prepare to make their final report after a year and a half of collecting evidence, formally and informally, as to, the realities of where cricket is around various inequities, around race, gender, class. So that report will land in probably the end of October, early November. So I expect to still be in the interim role for that moment. But as you say, the game has enormous challenges, but enormous opportunities. If we can unify and get through some of those conversations better than perhaps we have in the past, then there is an enormous opportunity for cricket to thrive, to mean more to more people, to serve communities that it hasn't probably had the right relationship with in the past. And I'm unbelievably committed to that journey.
Well, that's the interim CEO of the ECB, Claire Connor, telling me this morning she doesn't want the job full time. Meanwhile, the 100 reaches its climax later today. We'll have live coverage of both the men's and women's finals on 5 Live and on BBC Two. Oval Invincibles take on Southern Brave in the women's final, first at 2:30, before Trent Rockets face off against Manchester Originals in the men's final at 6:30. New Zealand star Susie Bates is captain of the Oval Invincibles and has been having quite the tournament.
Oh, Bates goes downtown. She's got plenty on this for 6. Wonderful shot. Fielders both back on the boundary as well, but she had the confidence to know she could clear.
Well, Susie Bates, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us so close to finals day. You are having quite the tournament, as we've said. So that was 79, highest score in the women's 100 this year in your final group game. How are you feeling going into the final today?
Yeah, it was nice to lead from the front with the bat and get us straight to the final at Lord's. But I think when you've been playing as long as I have, you know that nothing else that's happened before the final really matters. So it's a new day today against a very good Southern Brave team who they're the only team that we've actually lost to in the tournament so far. So it's going to be a big challenge and just got to go out there and start again and enjoy the day at Lord's.
You went straight through to the final, of course, but Southern Brave had a nail-biting eliminator yesterday against Trent Rockets. Were you able to watch that?
Yeah, we were actually. We trained in the morning and then a few of the team gathered in the team room and watched it on the big screen. And I almost left at one point because I thought the Brave had won easily. And I hung in there and watched Nat Siver blast all those sixes and take it down to the last ball. So it was very nervy, but yeah, brilliant game for the eliminator. And I wasn't too bothered who went through, but yeah, it was a great game to watch.
How have you enjoyed the 100 this year? Because I know that obviously you and the Australian players as well couldn't come over to play last year because of the pandemic. But how has it been for you playing for Oval Invincibles?
Yeah, I've loved it. I watched the finals last year on TV while we were actually over here. We had a tour of England, but we weren't available to play. But I saw the crowds and the atmosphere and knew it was something that I wanted to be a part of if I was given the opportunity. So to be able to come here after the Commonwealth Games and, our first game at the Oval, we had a sellout crowd. And I remember being on the field and I couldn't hear the person that was 5 metres away from me. And the atmosphere was crazy. And every ground we've been to, we've had such good crowds, and it just makes it so exciting to play in front of all those people. But yeah, the format, the first couple of games, that all happened very fast, and it was a bit chaotic initially, but once I've played a few more games, you realise it's just cricket. It just happens just that little bit quicker.
Yeah, you mentioned the Commonwealth Games. I mean, I'm still slightly traumatised by that bronze medal match because in the end, congratulations to you. You beat England comprehensively, didn't you, to win that bronze medal? What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was pretty special. The cricket being part of that for the first time, and Birmingham was awesome. The crowds there again were really good, whether England was playing or not. They supported all the teams, and we had a quick turnaround for that bronze medal match after losing to Australia. So it was nice to finish that campaign on a win and to be able to stand on the podium, because I'm not sure in my career you'll get many more opportunities, and whether cricket stays in the Commonwealth Games, we don't know yet. But yeah, it was great to just be part of the wider New Zealand team and watch a lot of the other sports and feel like you were part of something bigger than just a cricket tournament.
Well, I think that the atmosphere that there was throughout that tournament was, as you say, fantastic. And a sellout crowd at Lord's today. How much are you looking forward to it? Will the nerves kick in, do you think, as you make your way out onto the field in front of the famous pavilion?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter how long you've played or how many big games you've played, and this is a pretty big one. And to be at Lord's, there's always a different feeling about it. It's a special place. So there'll be some nerves. Thankfully, as a group, we have had one game here already in the tournament. So a lot of our young girls, we've got some 17-year-olds, they've had that experience and it went well. So it's nice to have it a little bit familiar and not all too daunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know everyone that gets out there will be nervous, but let's hope it's a great game.
I'm sure you will. Susie, get well today. Thank you very much indeed. So Oval Invincibles against Southern Brave, 2:30 in the women's. Trent Rockets, Manchester Originals at 6:30. Have a great day today. Greg, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, same time.
And coming up next, it's Patrick Keelty.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio.